Welcome back to the KooCast. My name is Nick. It is Friday. Thank God it is Friday because, all right, it hasn't been that hard a week, but I'm just grateful that today is Friday, and I'm thankful that this day is over. It was a lot of work today. I'm not gonna lie. It was a fun-filled day at work. Lots of stuff to do, lots of shoots to do, lots of editing to do. In short, I actually had to work today. So, just so you understand, I know. Unusual, but I did. I actually had to earn my money today, so Westpac was getting their money's worth from me. Not really a lot going on today, though I did have a small thing I want to talk about today, but I mean, Detective Pikachu is out today. That's not what I'm talking about. Detective Pikachu was out yesterday. I'm thinking about seeing it. I've heard a lot of good things about it, but I'm not a Pokemon fan. Should I see it? Has anybody seen it, and is it going to appeal to people who don't know much about Pokemon? The movie looks great, though. But I feel like I may be going by myself. I don't know if anybody wants to go see this movie with me because I don't know anybody my age who actually wants to see the Pokemon movie apart from small kids. But I don't know. Maybe I'll have to drag a kid along with me so I don't look like a weirdo, like an adult going to a kid's movie basically. But whatever. Look, one of the things I have been indulging in recently is on YouTube. You may be seeing these a lot, but they're basically videos that complain a lot about things in fandom, like a lot of things in pop culture, where people basically complaining about The Last Jedi, people complaining about the latest Game of Thrones season, people complaining about a myriad of just fandom things and what they hate about it and why they're going to boycott these things. They're just taking everything to the nth degree. And I find it's getting a little frustrating. It's getting a little bit it's pulling on, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. It's really actually pissing me off. The reason being is because I don't think these people are trying to find anything good about the shows that they're watching. In fact, if they don't like the shows so much, why are they even watching these shows? It's almost watching from the point of view like these people who made these shows owe you something. And while I can appreciate that they do want, obviously everybody who makes content wants people to find their audience that people connect with. I feel like a lot of these people who complain about these shows complain about them thinking these people are trying to put out the worst product possible, when in fact I feel like they are doing their best. And that being said, I'm not saying that Game of Thrones is not without its faults. It does. Like, especially the last few seasons have definitely had their faults. I've definitely complained about those things. I don't hate the show. I actually still like the show. I actually enjoy the show for what it is because it is remarkable that this level of television exists. We have never seen TV like this ever before. You go back 10 years, there is nothing even close to this. Not on the level of writing. I'm even talking about the 7th and 6th seasons, which I have not enjoyed in terms of the writing. But even in terms of the level of writing, the visual effects, the acting, the ensemble, the cast, the amount of money they are throwing at this show is unprecedented. I'm just letting you know, fantasy was not on the table. Writing a medieval fantasy story and filming it was not on the table a few years ago. Well, there have been attempts like Hercules. I guess you could call Hercules and Xena Warrior Princess. There have been a few attempts, but nothing to this level. And it's frustrating because people are just nitpicking things apart to the point where it's like, okay, I don't know what you want from this show or how you can appreciate anything anymore because I feel you're just nitpicking about things. There was one, particularly from the last episode of Game of Thrones. There's no spoilers. I won't spoil anything from the last several episodes. I promise there will be no spoilers about anything in the last few episodes. But the last episode, there was a lot of this controversy. There was one scene in the Great Hall, and there was one of the cast left a coffee cup, a Starbucks coffee cup in the Great Hall. And then suddenly there were a lot of articles that came out of it basically saying, whoops, apparently Starbucks has set up shop in Westeros. So they've obviously got a shop in King's Landing. I mean, in Winterfell. all these kind of jokes came out. It was kind of funny. And if anybody has worked on any kind of film or any set, these things are easy enough to miss. You can have a million people see the same shot over and over again, but for whatever reason, somebody missed it. It's not impossible. It's like when you have typos in wording. Speaking of typos, did you hear that the $50 in Australia, we just released a new $50 note, and $46 million of this note went out into circulation. However, there was a typo on the $50 note. Somebody didn't spell check responsibility. Again, that's a little bit more funny because I just feel like, wow. I guess you know the counterfeits from the real ones, because the real ones have a typo in the word responsibility, but now you know. Anyway, that being said, a movie of this size, I get it. I mean, a TV show of this size, I get it. That 1,000 people have seen this episode before it aired, or did 1,000 people see this episode before it aired? Maybe it was a last-second shot that they put into the episode before they even decided to release it, and maybe only a handful of people saw the episode before it went out. And I can totally see how that coffee cup could have been left in. It wasn't really all I didn't notice it actually at all until somebody pointed it out. And I would never have noticed it if nobody had pointed it out. It wasn't something that was burned in my brain. And to be honest, if I had seen it, I would have just laughed. I wouldn't have been, chastising these people for making that mistake. It's an honest mistake. I mean, that stuff happens all the time. I don't know why people were getting... I get people making fun of it. It was worth making fun of because it was kind of an odd thing. It's like people seeing wristwatches. I think there was another episode where somebody saw a wristwatch or something else along those sort of lines. Fine, completely fine. It's funny. Movie mistakes have literally been around since the beginning of time, since the beginning of movies. There's always been inconsistencies and movie mistakes. It's just one of those kind of funny Easter eggs you find in every movie. But they're usually not front and center. People don't usually make those mistakes front and center. It's just one of those things where you see in the background, it's like, oh, an eyebrow raise. It's like, that's weird. Apparently in Lord of the Rings, there was a car in the background in one of the movies. I've never seen it, but it's so far away. Anyway, I digress. Going back to that though, I saw this one YouTuber basically talking about how he thought that it was one of the most egregious things that the people who are making Game of Thrones are not taking this seriously. How dare they leave a coffee cup on set? They have no respect for the fans. This guy was basically going on and on about how he's been in the Hunger Games and he's this actor who understands how thousands of people have seen this movie and go through blah, 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 and just crying on and on like a little baby, going on about how this show owes him some sort of, I don't know. It's like this coffee cup was just really offensive to him. And this is what bugs me about this great cycle, is that we love to complain about things. As a society, I think it's more fun to complain about things or to nitpick on things, when in reality we're just not appreciating the art for what it is. Game of Thrones is not perfect, but it is a bloody miracle that this show exists. It's the dragon animation alone is something I don't think I've even seen this level of dragon animation in many movies, let alone a TV show. I mean, the closest you're going to get is the second Hobbit movie, The Desolation of Smaug, where the dragon animation in that is excellent. But I mean, apart from that, I can't think of another movie where the animation of a dragon is even there to this level. I was commenting on the last episode that one of the dragons, Rhaegal, is excellently animated to the point where you really feel for this dragon. So I'm just saying, like, they are putting their best foot forward making this show. And it frustrates me to no end that people just think that this stuff just comes together really easily. It doesn't. There are thousands of man hours that go into putting together one episode. And it's not just one person. I would even dare say there might be millions of man hours putting together one episode. The clothing, I was going to say the clothing and the costuming. No, the costuming, the set design, the sets on this show, Game of Thrones alone, is enormous. And the acting, the learning the lines, the writing the story. Again, of course, I come back to the story because this is one thing that is hard to qualify. Obviously, the first, 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, I think, is it end of season 5? I believe the books ended at season 5, but obviously from season 1 to season 4, it's airtight in terms of the plot. It's really great. Character development is really good. They stuck pretty close to the books. There's not a lot of complaints about season 1 to 4 about Game of Thrones. It's season 5 to now, which everybody gets a little bit their knickers in a knot about. And I get it. It's not as coherent or as concise as the books. It can't be. We're talking about people who are writing from an outline versus George R. R. Martin writing for the last 20 years over and over again to get the nuances, the balance of all the characters and what they would actually do right. And that's hard. I mean, I dare say there probably wasn't a solution for the writing for this book other than George basically writing the last 2 books of this series. There isn't a solution here. And you're sort of caught in the middle as a viewer because what are you supposed to do? They either had to stop for the next 5 years and wait for George to finish his book, which, who knows? I mean, is he even going to finish A Song of Ice and Fire? We're not going to know. Because, I mean, he very well may cark it before he finishes the next book after this one. I believe he's getting, well, we don't know. Well, nobody knows how far George is down the line to get this current book out. But the fact is, it just takes so much effort to write this story. And I commend the writers for taking on the task, or having the audacity to take on the task of essentially writing everything that George has written and trying to condense it into a TV show in the span of, I would say, less than a year, like 6 months tops, if they had that much time to even write the story. And that's tough. That's not easy. It's not an easy task for anybody to achieve because essentially if you have written a script before, writing is a tough job to get right. It takes a lot of writes and rewrites. I mean, we're not all Stephen King, you know. A lot of an average person to write a really tight and concise script takes years to write a decent script. It's not easy. I mean, some people will say they'll do it in a few months. We're not all Tarantino, right? But Tarantino is a bit of a freak. Most of us have to write and rewrite to balance the story till it becomes what it needs to be. And that takes time. And the fact that Game of Thrones works so well is because George R. R. Martin had years to perfect his storylines to get it to the point where it actually was the story that it became. He probably had moments where it was really fat in some areas and he just had to rip pages out, you know, just to make it really, really sing. And that is the genius behind the first 4 books of, 5 books of Game of Thrones. And to blame the writers for not getting it right because they had to write a script within 6 months or whatever they have, even if they had a full year, that is an astoundingly short time to basically try and replicate what somebody tried to perfect in 15 years in a year. And that's where I get a bit frustrated is because, well, why are we not giving them a little bit of slack? It's a big task. You either have 2 choices. You either have no Game of Thrones or you have Game of Thrones, but you have to put up with the fact that George didn't write this part of the script. He just wrote the outline. And that is kind of the catch-22. I don't know if you can really put the proviso at the beginning of season 5 and go, look, guys, George didn't write this section. We're just making this up. So it's going to be a little bit not as concise as the previous movies, but previous shows, but we're just going to have to deal with that fact. And I just feel like people don't appreciate that fact. Don't appreciate the fact that people are literally trying their hardest to give you the best show that they can. It might not be the show that you wanted, but it is the best that they can do with the resources they have. And that is if you just watch Game of Thrones for what it is, it's pretty damn good, guys. Can we just appreciate it for what it is? You can be cynical and say, like, some of the tactics they used and some of the battles didn't quite work, or everything was very convenient. And I do complain about that stuff in my reviews. I'm not going to lie. I do. You go back and watch a couple episodes, you know I complain about that stuff all the time. I like pulling that stuff apart too. But I don't hate the show. I like the show. I think it's a much stronger season than last season. And this will be a hard show to finish because I think they've only got 2 episodes to go and I don't actually know how they're going to finish it. It probably won't be as balanced as I'd like, but it'll be done. And I'm going to appreciate the ending for what it is. And they are throwing as much money as they can at this show. They're clearly not sparing any expense. It's pretty epic. And regardless of how the season ends, I'm going to be glad that I saw the show and I got to participate with everybody else. And yeah, we're going to make fun of all this stuff, but what are you going to do? I like watching the show. You know, I really actually took this to heart when old mate Ali was basically telling me, like, why do you hate on all this stuff? Why do you be one of those people who just want to hate? And I kind of thought about that a lot, and I thought, hey, you're right. Why just hate on stuff for the sake of hating on stuff? Just appreciate the work for what it is. And as a person who does create things, I appreciate it. I get that there's a lot of work that goes into these things, and to hate on so many people's hard work is mean. Like, you can just not like it, which is fine. You can not like aspects of it. I always say that about the originals, the prequels of Star Wars, is that they in themselves are not perfect. By a long shot, there's a lot of things I don't like about the prequels, but there's parts of it I do love. And one of the things was George opening up the universe in a way that nobody else could have done. I mean, you can see within the sequels that they're making now, they are deathly afraid to open up the universe too much. But George opened it up completely in the prequels, and that's a blessing. Fans didn't appreciate it at the time, but he opened up a new section of the universe we had never seen before, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that he added more lore to the story. I appreciated that he kind of brought a more nuanced take of how it wasn't just good and bad. It was a whole lot of gray area that he introduced into those stories, and he made gray characters, and I love that. And even with The Last Jedi, for example, which is now, I think, not universally, but in fandom, there's certain sections of fandom is universally hated. Sorry, it's not universally. It's just that there are sections of fandom who hate on Star Wars The Last Jedi a lot. And I can understand people not liking the film because of some of the direction. I've seen some of the criticism and I understand where that comes from. But to just capitalize on people's hate online, putting out video essays about why they hated the movie I can't subscribe to that. I don't want to be one of these people who just hates on stuff. I want to like that stuff that's out there. It's not a perfect film by any means. There are bits and pieces of The Last Jedi that I just can't agree with. But I love what it was trying to do. I don't think he succeeded. I really think Ryan really made everybody angry because I'm really not sure where his head was at when he wrote the script. But I guess he was trying to do something different, but it was just, there was just something that didn't quite hit the mark. I think the tone of that movie was kind of wrong. Actually, you know what? The movie itself may have been better served. Now, I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying the movie itself may have been better served. I was just thinking about this the other day. If they just didn't make it so funny, actually. Not saying that Star Wars isn't funny, but there was a lot of jokes in The Last Jedi that I was just thinking, I'm not sure I appreciate the tone of this episode. Like I said, I have gripes with The Last Jedi, but I do appreciate some of the bits of it. Some of the red chamber for lightsaber scene I appreciate a lot. The Rey and Kylo connection I appreciated. The music is pretty great. Some of the practical effects in that movie are pretty astounding. And it was nice to see Luke Hamill Mark Hamill back as Luke Skywalker, even if he was very curmudgeoned. I still appreciated seeing him on the big screen again. Yeah, there was some cool things, and there were just other things I was like, we'll see how they go with The Rise of Skywalker, but we'll never know. We'll see how we go. But yeah, guys, I just want to encourage you, please be one of these people who isn't joining on the bandwagon of just hating stuff for the sake of hating stuff. If you really don't like it, if you really hate something and you want to tell people, if you really don't like something, I think this is what I hate about those, and I really mean hate. I really, really hate these video essays that basically go in to destroy, quote unquote, destroy why these movies are so bad. It's just that they're just armchair critics. They just sit there and they just slag off things they hate about the movie to the point where they're saying, you should agree with me too. And I hate that. It's like, you can just come out of the movie, form your own opinion, and you can say you like the movie, and that's fine. Like Captain Marvel, I heard a lot of people saying they wanted to hate that movie, and it wasn't as bad as everybody was saying it was. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great Marvel movie, but it wasn't bad. It was just serviceable. And I think that's a fair critique of that movie. And I'm not a person who likes hating on stuff in general. If there's merit to be found in a movie, I'll go into it. In fact, I find it's like, why would I want to go into a movie and waste 2 hours of my life and come out disappointed? If anything, I would just go in with low expectations for anything and take it for what it is. It is just entertainment. It's not there to inspire you to climb Mount Everest or to create the next Apple iPad. I don't know why I picked those two particular examples, or to cure cancer. It's just fiction to help you just, fill in the gaps in your life that are just a bit boring sometimes. We have so much entertainment at our disposal that you could fill your whole life up from now until eternity with just stuff. But we don't need to. And you can be selective of what you want to watch. You don't have to go and watch these things. But these people are putting this stuff out there for you to watch. And if you want to watch it and enjoy it with fandom, you can totally do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I like to subscribe to the fact that if you like something, you can like it. There's nothing wrong with you liking that thing. Enjoy the fandom, enjoy that thing. If you don't like it, just don't watch it again, or don't subscribe to that franchise. It was just, I will say it does get my goat a little bit when we have to criticize everything. We don't have to criticize everything. We can just have our opinion and then move on. I'm never going to tell anybody that they have to like the episodes that I like. Especially the last episode of Game of Thrones, like episode 4, I actually enjoyed. In the moment, it's not perfect. I still enjoyed the heck out of it. There was stuff about it that I really dug. I thought there was tons about that episode that was great. And yet, people still want to poo-poo on this episode. You heard me say poo-poo. People still want to crap all over the episode just because they can. I was actually watching this commentator, and I can understand. He went on this. There was this YouTube commentator went on and on about how episode 3 was so bad because of the tactics and blah, blah, blah. Understand. There was a lot about that episode. It was just like, there were some good bits and there were just like, some bits. That episode had its problems, but it was still bloody entertaining, but wasn't my favorite episode of the season. Maybe my second favorite. Maybe my third favorite. I'd say out of the 4 episodes, it was probably my third favorite. But last episode was pretty great, and it was great for so many reasons because it was a lot of character interaction that we hadn't seen for a while, and it was just good drama, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't perfect, but it was good drama. And yet, this YouTube commentator gets on and then starts railing about how this is so stupid, or that is so stupid, or I just cannot subscribe. They have literally, quote unquote, destroyed Game of Thrones. These people have no idea how to do this. And I do get the irony that I am basically critiquing another guy's critique. But you get what I'm trying to say. Let's stop let's stop spreading the hate around for people's creative vision, right? You don't have to watch it. I'm just putting that out there. If somebody is saying stuff or doing stuff that you don't like, just don't watch it. Don't listen to it. Just leave it. Just leave it and move on. If somebody asks you your opinion about that thing, go ahead. Listen, make your point, say you hate it, but don't tell people that they can't enjoy it, because some people do. There's some shows that I'm never going to enjoy, like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Why do people waste their life with that stuff? And Marie Kondo, what is up with that show? I'm never going to thank stuff before I throw it away. This hippie dippy nonsense, ridiculous. You didn't ask for that opinion, but I'm giving you my unsolicited opinion of Marie Kondo. But like I said, if that's something you subscribe to, that's fine. And all power to you if you do. It's just not for me. Anyway, guys, this has been a little bit ranty. I don't really mind. You didn't come here to listen to a balanced critique of why I think people shouldn't critique things, but you get the idea. I want to foster a culture where we are trying to make stuff and be considerate of how much time goes into the people making these things. It's very easy to be the person who just critiques and says they should have done a better job. It's actually not that. It's actually pretty damn hard. I'm not saying DB Weiss or whatever it's DB Weiss and the other dude, David Benioff. I'm not saying that they're the most perfect producers or showrunners ever, but I wouldn't want to be in their shoes for the very reason that their fan expectation is so high. It may be impossible to try and actually give you exactly what you want. And my hat's off to them. They've pulled off a pretty remarkable job, regardless of how some of the fandom out there is going on and on about how this is the worst thing or Game of Thrones is ruined. Why do people just say that everything is ruined? Star Wars is ruined. Game of Thrones is ruined. Marvel is ruined. Nothing's ruined. It's just something you don't like. You don't have to watch this stuff anymore. Just go back to the originals. If you only like Star Wars episode 4 to 6, just watch those ones. If you like episode 1 to 6, or you only like the prequels only, which I can't imagine why people would just like the prequels only, but you never know. The prequels though, don't get me wrong, I like the prequels. There are aspects of the prequels, but I do fall asleep in episode 2 because it is a little bit boring. Yeah, and out of the new Star Wars, look, it's... If you don't want to watch that stuff, if you only want to like a certain part of something, just enjoy it for what it is. Stop trashing everybody else who likes what they like. It's fine. If you liked Captain Marvel, I don't understand your taste, but that's fine. You can like it. I'm giving you permission to like what you want to like. And if you don't like it, just move on. It's pretty much that easy. You don't have to give your 2 cents of why they destroyed something, why anybody destroyed any particular franchise. Because at the end of the day, you're not making it. Somebody else is. And I'm not saying that you don't have the right. You can have your opinion. But just flip the tables on a second. If you were the showrunner on this show and you had the money and you knew all the circumstances that were in play, what would you do? I dare say you wouldn't be doing the same thing. I'd dare say you might actually make it worse. Anyway, guys, that's it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.